morning, and welcome to Unitarian Universalist Church West. Welcome to this space of love, support, justice, compassion, and fellowship. All of who you are, all of your hopes and dreams and struggles and challenges are welcome here. My name is Steve Fry, and as a member of the worship ministry team, I'm glad to be here leading the service with you today. If you are new to Unitarian Universalist Church West or Unitarian Universalism, we're very happy that you are here. Send us a message at visitor@uucw.org. When you can, we'd love to connect with you. I'd like to introduce the wonderful team of people who have helped shape today's service. Our lead music director, Jennifer Nicolosi, Ruben Pirinen, our music director, Dave Cicero, our director of Lifespan Religious Education. Sue Shallig will lead our chalice lighting. Kathy Herwig will tell us about Split the Plate. Also with us is Kelly Bognar, our publications coordinator, working behind the scenes to manage the technology that makes our service possible. Our pulpit guest today is the Reverend Dr. Michael A. Schuler. Michael was voted Minister Emeritus. Good morning, Michael. He's the author of Making the Good Life Last, 4 Keys to Sustainable Living. He is also finishing work on a new interdisciplinary study provisionally entitled Humanism, in Command or in Crisis. I know you will enjoy his thoughts on Commander Data, man or machine, this morning. Now, please join Sue with our chalice lighting, followed by hymn 288, All Our Architects.
A wise person once said, "Sometimes we need a story more than food to stay alive." Stories give us hope. They help tell each other who we are and what matters to us. Stories carry culture and transmit traditions. They remind us of miracles manifested and mistakes made along the way. Let's gather round the chalice now and tell our stories.
Good morning. I am Dave Cicero, Director of Lifespan Religious Education here at UU Church West, and I'm excited to reflect today, along with Steve and Reverend Schuler, on what it means to be human. Many of our Unitarian Universalist principles focus on affirming how we believe we ought to treat each and every person. But what exactly is it that makes people people. Stories asking this question go back far beyond what we consider to be modern or contemporary times, so it's safe to say that it's not a new or uncommon question. In ancient Greek mythology, King Pygmalion sculpted his ideal woman, Galatea, from ivory and promptly fell in love with her. The goddess Aphrodite brought her to life, fulfilling Pygmalion's wishes but raising the question of Galatea's true nature. The living characters created by human hands haven't always been so beautiful. Dr. Frankenstein, in Mary Shelley's classic, gives life to the creature he assembled from dead tissue. In the original story, the monster becomes an educated and well-mannered individual, but he's hated by most who meet him and eventually learns how he was created. The creature swears revenge against the doctor for leaving him alone in a world where he is despised. Another popular story and metaphor for the human condition is Pinocchio, a wooden puppet brought to life by a blue fairy. She informs Pinocchio that he can become a real boy if he proves himself to be brave, truthful, and unselfish. Walt Disney cleaned up the story a bit, so let's just say that the original Pinocchio struggled in his efforts to live up to those virtues. The Wonderful World of Oz gave us two characters, each wishing to be more human. The Tin Man desired a heart, while the Scarecrow wanted brains. Now, Dorothy was unable to decide which was more important, the mind or the emotions, but having them both turned out to be for the best. Modern American sci-fi literature and television and movies have brought technology into the conversation, with Steve Austin and Jamie Summer using enhanced physical powers to help bring justice to their world. Replicants threatening their human creators with rebellion and being so sophisticated that only an empathy test could verify someone's true nature. RoboCop, whose mission is to fight crime, but who also needs to cope with his very human fears and conscience, despite his machine-like appearance. Star Trek is a franchise that often has non-human life forms, like Spock, Seven of Nine, and Commander Data, who we'll learn more about later, contemplating the nature of humanity. So, what does it mean to be human? Well, I have a book here written by Susan Verdi and illustrated by Peter H. Reynolds that I'll read today with permission from Abrams Books. It's called I Am Human. I was born, a miracle, one of billions, but unique. I am human. I am always learning. I'm finding my way and choosing my path on this incredible journey. I have big dreams. I see possibility. I have endless curiosity. I make discoveries. I have a feeling of wonder. I am amazed by nature. I have a playful side. I find joy in friendships. I am human. But being human means I'm not perfect. I make mistakes. I can hurt others with my words, my actions, and even my silence. I can be hurt too. I can be fearful of the things I don't yet understand, and timid to try something new. I have a heavy heart when I feel sadness. I am human. But then I remind myself that because I am human, I can make choices. I can move forward. A poor choice can become a better choice with thoughtfulness. A bad day can become a great day with kindness. I can act with compassion and lend a helping hand. I can treat others with equality and be fair. I can choose not to fight, but instead to listen and find common ground. I can say I'm sorry and ask for forgiveness. I am human, one of billions, but unique. I am not alone. I am connected to my friends, to my family, to the world. We are all humans together. And I will keep trying to be the best version of me. I am full of hope. I am human.
Thank you, Dave. I'd like everyone to take a deep breath, relax, get comfortable as I lead you through a breath meditation by Samuel Trumbore. Let us turn inward now. Feel the rhythm of the breath in and out, in and out. Find the peace of just being with the flow of the breath, letting go of yesterday and tomorrow. Feel the restorative power of the peace of this moment, a peace large enough to open to the concerns and sorrows that trouble us, a stillness quiet enough to respond to the joys and celebrations that enliven us. There is safety here in the rhythm of the breath. The ebb and flow of life is enacted with each one, taking in oxygen sustenance, letting go of carbon dioxide waste, taking in the fullness of experience, letting go of the residue that wants to cling to us. Cultivate inner peace and inner safety in this sanctuary, dedicated to cultivating the spirit of life, dedicated to being a beacon of love for all beings.
Good morning. That visual was a tough act to follow. It's good to be with you this morning. And I would like to begin my remarks with a selection from Ray Kurzweil's 1999 book, The Age of Spiritual Machines. Ray Kurzweil is an American inventor, a futurist, and an author. He's a graduate of MIT and an acknowledged expert in the field of artificial intelligence. During his formative years, Kurzweil and his secular Jewish parents attended the Unitarian Universalist Church of Queens, New York. He is the recipient of many awards, including the National Merit of Technology, the highest award that the President of the United States can bestow for technical innovation. These are his words. There is a plethora of credible scenarios for achieving human-level intelligence in a machine. By the second decade of the 21st century, Kurzweil writes, computers will be able to read on their own, understanding and modeling what they have read. Ultimately, the machines will gather knowledge on their own by venturing into the physical world, drawing from the full spectrum of media and information services, and sharing knowledge with each other, which machines can do far more easily than their human creators. Now, once a computer achieves a human level of intelligence, it will necessarily roar right past it. Neurons are extremely slow. Electronic circuits are at least 1 million times faster. And so once a computer achieves a human level of ability in understanding abstract concepts, recognizing patterns and other attributes of human intelligence, it will be able to apply this ability to a knowledge base of all human acquired and machine acquired information. As computers continue to gain in capacity at an exponential rate, machine competence will rival and ultimately surpass any particular human skill one cares to cite, including our marvelous ability to place our ideas in a broad range of contexts. Now, evolution has been seen as a billion-year drama that led inexorably to the grandest of all creations, human intelligence. The emergence in the early 21st century of a new form of intelligence on Earth, an intelligence that can compete with and ultimately significantly exceed human intelligence, that will be a development of greater import than any of the other events that have shaped all of human history. It will have profound implications for all aspects of human endeavor, including the nature of work, human learning, government, warfare, the arts, and even our concept of ourselves. As computers achieve a comparable and greater level of complexity, a variety of philosophical issues will emerge. Are computers thinking, or are they just calculating? And conversely, are human beings thinking, or are we just calculating? The human brain presumably follows the laws of physics, so it must be a machine, albeit a very complex one. So is there an inherent difference between human thinking and machine thinking? Or to pose the question in a different way, once computers are as complex as the human brain and can match the human brain in subtlety and complexity of thought, ought we to consider them conscious? Computers in the future will increasingly appear to have their own personalities, evincing reactions that can only be labeled as emotions, articulating their own goals and purposes. They will appear to have free will. They will claim to have spiritual experiences. And people, those still using carbon-based neurons or otherwise, people will have to believe them. There is a more recent book from 2017 that follows up on many of the comments, the observations that Ray Kurzweil made, entitled Life 3.0 by Mark Tegsmark, also of MIT University. So if you are interested in the foregoing, what you just heard, you might want to take a look at either one of these two books. Well, the first of Unitarian Universalism's 7 principles bids us, quote, to affirm and promote the inherent worth and dignity of every person. It is, I suspect, a sentiment that the late Gene Roddenberry, creator of the perennially popular Star Wars television series, would have endorsed. Now, Roddenberry was not a Unitarian Universalist. Having repudiated the Southern Baptist tradition in which he was raised, Roddenberry declared himself an agnostic. And then late in life, he became a card-carrying member of the American Humanist Association. Before his death in 1991, that organization, the American Humanist Association, honored Gene Roddenberry with the Humanist Arts Award in recognition of his distinguished contribution to humanist thought. Unitarian Universalism's first principle makes, however, a profoundly humanistic claim. The claim that persons are intrinsically valuable, that each and every one of us is entitled to consideration and respect. This is not something we have to earn. It is not bestowed as a reward for some kind of special accomplishment or for good behavior. We are valuable simply by virtue of who we most essentially are. As Kenneth Collier, the minister emeritus of our congregation in Santa Barbara, once wrote, "What I have called the profoundly beautiful lives deep within the heart of every human being. This profound beauty is the spiritual foundation of life, and it is no more possible to lose this spiritual foundation than to lose our genetic heritage. It is possible to blind ourselves to this profundity. It's possible to ignore it, to forsake it, or even fail to believe in it, to exclude it from the reality of our living, but it is not possible to lose it. It is there at birth, at death, and at every moment in between. And it is by virtue of this profound beauty that every human being is inherently valuable and dignified, no matter what he or she has done with the life that they have been given." So Kenneth Collier emphasizes that every human being, regardless of their beliefs, their behavior, their accomplishments, is to be so regarded as profoundly beautiful. Now, he admits that this is a very tall order. And the first principle states an ideal that we can only hope to approximate. Now, some have done better than others in this regard. And so here we think of great souls like Jesus of Nazareth or Mother Teresa or Mahatma Gandhi, or the contemporary Buddhist teachers Thich Nhat Hanh and Pema Chodron. Great souls like these have embraced their fellow men and women indiscriminately, in spite of all their flaws, their imperfections, their misdeeds, or their social standing. So the provenance of this principle, the first principle, is not uniquely Unitarian Universalist. Christianity and Islam teach that the image of God is indelibly stamped on every human soul, although some Christians do say that this image has been sullied by original sin. Buddhism makes a comparable claim in that each of us is said to possess an inherent Buddha nature with the potential for all of us of full enlightenment. But in few places is the matter stated quite so succinctly and directly as in our own first principle. But what more precisely does this simple phrase really mean? Well, let's look at the two central words in that principle, the words worth and dignity. So according to Webster, worth applies to that which is enduringly excellent, meritorious, or desirable. dignity, the state of being worthy or esteemed. The two words have similar connotations. So we are obliged, therefore, to accept, honor, and esteem every member of our species and place a value on their lives equal to our own. Or, as Immanuel Kant put it in his categorical imperative, we must treat other human beings as ends in themselves rather than as means to our own ends. Now, does this imply that people should not be held accountable for their actions, that cruel, malicious behavior must be overlooked? Well, certainly not, because human beings are not just individuals. We are social animals. We are dependent, wholly dependent on communities, the communities that we build and that we maintain. And so individuals must comport themselves in a manner that is conducive to wholesome and harmonious communal living. But what the first principle forbids is arbitrary disdain or exclusion or disregard. There shall be no hierarchy of value in which some are considered to be more intrinsically worthy than others. As that great pioneer of Unitarian thought, William Ellery Channing, put it early in the 19th century, my conception of dignity says to me with authority that my neighbor is as precious as myself and that his rights are as sacred as my own rights. Now, one question I always ask myself when I consider our movement's first principle is this: why should inherent worth and dignity be ascribed only to human beings, to Homo sapiens? Is such anthropocentrism truly justified? Now, to be sure, the principle refers to persons and not to human beings, but Webster defines a person as a human being. According to common usage, then, only human beings can legitimately qualify as persons. And that's the very question that takes us back to the story of Star Trek and its creators' feelings about this matter. Now, Gene Roddenberry may have been a humanist, but if there is one consistent theme, one message that recurs throughout the series, it is that other species, other non-human entities, aliens like Klingons and Vulcans, are persons, and that they too possess inherent worth and dignity. There is in Star Trek, Ken Marsalek writes, a celebration of diversity and a commitment to equality, self-determination, and individual rights. It accepts universal ethical norms that transcend any particular religion or culture. Mr. Spock, the Enterprise's science officer in the original series. Mr. Spock was not fully human. His mother was human, his father was a Vulcan. And Mr. Spock even evinced a certain disdain for what he perceived as humanity's intrinsic flaws, most notably our emotionalism and our illogic. Nevertheless, no one on the Starship Enterprise questioned Spock's value, judged to be in some way, and he was unashamed of his own mixed lineage. His shipmates accepted him for who he was. And much the same could be said for Mr. Worf, the formidable Klingon officer who appeared regularly in Star Trek: The Next Generation. But these questions of worth, dignity, and personhood really come to the fore where Commander Data, Mr. Spock's successor as science officer, is concerned. What is Data? Man? Machine? A unique combination of both? Now, this is not an idle question to be asking of a character in a popular television series. According to Ray Kurzweil, at a time when artificial intelligence and robotics are advancing so rapidly, this is a question that we ought to be pondering for ourselves and for the sake of future generations. So at this point, perhaps a little background is in order for the uninitiated. An android, Data, was created by a brilliant inventor by the name of Dr. Noonien Soong. And Data's sophisticated programming allows him not only to assimilate and analyze information in an instant, but to negotiate complex relationships, adapt to unfamiliar surroundings, to express himself creatively, and to learn from his prior experience. And although his pasty skin tone and his distinctive mannerisms betray his non-human status, Data is an anatomically correct android, even capable of sexual engagement. And whether he needs to or not, Data eats and drinks with his shipmates, and he shares in their social life. And Data also possesses certain character traits that we tend to admire in human beings. He feels a sense of attachment to and responsibility for his creator, Dr. Sung, whom he occasionally refers to as his father. He is loyal, faithful, sacrificial. He has won a number of meritorious service awards from Starfleet. He seems to possess a sense of gratitude and obligation. When he was asked why he had chosen a career in Starfleet, Data mentioned that at an earlier time in his existence, members of Starfleet had saved him from destruction. Now, Data lacks the ability to feel and to express genuine emotion, but he is caring, considerate, and generally sensitive to human beings' feelings. In one episode, a fellow officer on the starship named Jenna was impressed by Data's solicitude, and she falls for him and she expresses a desire to date him. Well, Data makes an effort to learn everything he can about romance so that he can meet Jenna's human expectations, and even devises and installs a software program specifically tailored to his new girlfriend. But ultimately, the relationship founders due to Data's neutral emotional state, his inability to feel real emotions. So even if you can make me happy, Jenna tells him, I can never hope to make you truly happy. And I just simply couldn't live that way. Now, interestingly, our English word person derives from the Latin persona, which describes the masks that ancient actors wore on stage. Data's programming creates a convincing human mask that makes it possible for him to interact smoothly and equitably with biological beings. But is that all he is? Just a mask? MIT's Sherry Turkle writes that as a criterion for life, everything pales in comparison to one's capacity to care. And Data does seem to care. There is something going on behind that facade, that mask. Now, the issue of Data's existential status and his ultimate destiny comes to a head in an episode entitled The Measure of a Man. And in this episode, we are introduced to Commander Maddox, who is an expert in robotics and cybernetics, just like Ray Kurzweil. And Maddox has been impressed with what he has heard and seen of Data. And so he wants to disassemble him in order to figure out what makes this unique android tick. Ultimately, Maddox hopes to learn enough about Data that he will be able to create more beings just like him, which would be of tremendous value to the Federation. But unfortunately, in conversations with the members of the crew on the Starship Enterprise, Maddox says he admits he's not quite sure how to proceed, and he cannot guarantee that once he's taken apart, Data, like Humpty Dumpty, will ever be fully himself again. Now, this troubles Maddox, but not enough to dissuade him from his task, because after all, Data is really just a machine, an it, and not a he. And although Captain Picard, Data's superior on the Enterprise, opposes this experiment, Maddox reminds the captain that technically and legally, Data is not an autonomous entity possessing certain rights. He's just a piece of property. Data belongs to Starfleet, whose leaders control his destiny. And so this conflict over data culminates in a trial in which evidence is presented pro and con. Is data a bona fide person possessing, as it were, inherent worth and dignity? Or are we dealing here with something that merely mimics what a human being is, but is not really something that's profoundly beautiful in the way that Ken Collier described it? In the last analysis, what is it that qualifies a being, any being, for the consideration that our first principle calls for? Now, androids aside, considerable debate over this question is already taking place with respect to the so-called higher animals in our world: dolphins, whales, chimps, elephants, parrots, horses, dogs. These are creatures that exhibit memory, oftentimes language ability, feelings, virtues such as courage and loyalty. An article in Science News reported on the ability of such animals to establish lasting friendships with non-related individuals. And the more we learn about them, the more complex, the more multidimensional chimps and canines and whales are proving to be. So should they be recognized as persons, or will we continue to reserve that status and its attendant rights only to human beings? Now, before we exclude other beings, sentient or mechanical, from this privileged position, we might also take a closer look at ourselves, at our own history, our own genetic inheritance. All of us know that not so long ago, the vast majority of white Americans denied that persons of African, Asian, or Native descent possessed this inherent worth and dignity. Members of these disfavored groups were fit for labor or for slaughter, but not for liberty. Turns out this is somewhat ironic, because Africans and Native Americans may actually be more human than those of us with European roots. Recent genetic research seems to indicate that someone like me with Northern European roots possesses between 1% and 4% Neanderthal DNA, the result of some very, very ancient intermingling. Now, findings in this area, Sam Keen writes, seem poised to change our understanding of where our species came from and to expand our sense of what it means to be a human being. So what the foregoing suggests is that terms like human being and person, those terms are ambiguous at best. Chimpanzees share with us approximately 98% of the same genes. And my own gene pool, I now understand, includes material from those slope-shouldered, heavy-browed Neanderthals. Is there really so much difference between species that I am entitled to a status that non-humans can never possess? It's a question that Dave seemed to pose in the message a few minutes ago. Back to data. In his defense, Captain Picard demonstrates that this android, this artificial man, does in fact exhibit many of the requisite characteristics of a sentient person, including consciousness, intelligence, and self-awareness. And Data himself points to the manner in which his own memory operates. He doesn't simply absorb and retain discrete bits of information. He draws from his accumulated memories in order to form even better and more mature judgments. In his own mind, Data says that he has developed an ineffable quality that humans possess, but that machines do not. But now Captain Picard clinches the argument by pointing out that in certain respects, human beings themselves are machines, that we are biological entities composed of flesh and blood, but that does not negate the fact, as Ray Kurzweil pointed out, the human brain presumably follows the laws of physics. So is there then an inherent difference between human thinking and machine thinking? The biologist E.O. Wilson chimes in, saying that people are, after all, just extremely complicated organic machines for which engineered solutions like artificial limbs and mechanical hearts and mind-altering drugs are now available. So when all the evidence was in, the judge rendered her verdict in Data's favor. He was, she ruled, an autonomous agent free to determine his own destiny. He was an end in himself, not simply a tool to be used or abused. And then offhandedly, the judge wondered aloud whether Data possessed a soul of some sort. But then she admitted to not knowing whether she herself had a soul. It was clear, however, that like us, Data had learned to behave soulfully, and thus breaking through the barrier between man and machine. Well, techno-prophets like Hans Moravec predict that science fiction will eventually become scientific fact. The distinction between us and robots is going to disappear, he enthuses. In the manner of Data's father, Dr. Noonien Soong, Moravec describes the future's sophisticated machines as our progeny, our offspring. They are mind children built in our image and likeness who will embody humankind's best chance for a long-term future. And so it behooves us, he says, to give them every possible advantage. So the question this discourse poses then is not whether you or I or others belonging to the species Homo sapiens possess an inherent worth or dignity. It is clear that we must be so regarded, because otherwise any one of us can become subject to exploitation or abuse. But then what about all those other entities who think and remember and feel? How many of them would we want to draw beneath the protective shelter of the first principle? We tend to think of Unitarian Universalism as a big tent, but is it big enough?
Children of the human race, offspring of our Mother Earth, not alone in endless space has our planet given birth. Far across the cosmic skies, countless suns in glory blaze, and from untold planets rise endless canticles of praise. Should some sign of others reach this our lonely planet Earth, differences of form and speech must not hide our common worth. When at length our minds are free, and the clouds of fear disperse, then at last we'll learn to be children of the universe.
UU Church West Split the Plate program is one of outreach and generosity. Each month, we give half of all undesignated offerings to a nonprofit organization to help us live into our Unitarian Universalist values and serve our community. Our Split the Plate partner for May is the Milwaukee Jewish Free Loan Association. The association provides a revolving loan fund, which gives interest-free short-term loans on a non-sectarian basis to people who need help with immediate basic needs. For example, some recipients need assistance to pay rent or utility bills, or for vehicle repair, or for medical or dental emergencies. Others need help for costs associated with job replacement or retraining. Whatever the need, the goal is to keep a person's life from unraveling at a critical time, promoting self-sufficiency with dignity. As the interest-free loans are repaid, the association recycles those funds into new loans. To support the Milwaukee Jewish Free Loan Association anytime this month, go to the UUCW website's Donate tab and select Split the Plate from the menu provided. Or you can text or mail your donation today using the information found here. Today, I thank you for your generosity to the Milwaukee Jewish Free Loan Association.
I leave you with these words from David Bumbaugh. Let us leave this virtual gathering dedicated to the proposition that behind all of our differences, beneath all of our diversity, there is a unity which makes us forever one, binds us forever together, in spite of time and death and the space between the stars. Blessed be, and amen.